Throughout history, mysteries of the most unimaginable kind have been part of our society. In this video, we will travel through time to learn who were, and perhaps still are, the lung-gom-pa, also known as lama runners or running monks. To do this, we must place ourselves in Tibet, the highest region of our planet, with 4,380 meters of elevations on average, or about 14,000 feet. This region is located in the Himalayas, in the east of the Asian continent. The Tibetan Empire had its rise in the 12th century, when Buddhism was formally introduced as the official religion of the place. Even so, the legend I am about to tell precedes this era, and not even the Tibetans themselves can give certainty as to when it began. As we well know, things as simple as sending a message, in the past it was a job and very well paid, since the safety and security in the journey were something practically impossible to guarantee in 100%. In Tibet, it was not only a profession, but a lifestyle highly respected by society, and for which many years of preparation were required. These were known as Tibetan running monks, Tibetan lamas, or also lung-gom-pa, which means walking the right path. Lung, pronounced lang, means air and vital energy. Gom means meditation or focused concentration. A lung-gom-pa is therefore someone who has attained the knowledge to harness his or her spiritual energy through meditation and conscious breathing, thus transcending the physical limits of the body. This legend has existed since the time of the ancient Tibetan kings. It is said that they ran very long distances to carry important messages from one monastery to another, or even to Tibetan communities, to protect the body's tradition and culture in Tibet. Their ability to run long distances without tiring made them a myth, an example of dedication and spiritual discipline. To be able to run for so long, they had to train their speed, endurance, just like any other human being, but also their mind. Let's remember that in high mountain areas, being the region with the highest elevation above sea level on the planet, the lack of oxygen is a determining factor. And when we talk about long distances, we mean that it is believed that they could run for days without stopping at an extraordinary speed. For this, they required several years of meditation, seclusion, and training, being able to run for up to 48 hours without stopping, reaching up to 320 kilometers per day. It is approximately the distance between the city of Buenos Aires and the city of Colón in Entre Rios, or the distance between Santiago de Chile and Linares, or also the distance between New York and Boston. The most striking thing is that they did not do it with a material or mundane purpose, such as winning races, but with a spiritual and enlightenment purpose. In his book, The Path of the White Clouds, the German convert to Buddhism Lama Anagarika Govinda says that the training process of a lung-gom-pa could only be carried out in two monasteries in Tibet, Nyang Tu Kipu near Shigatse and Samding. Govinda describes in his book that whoever wished to become a lung-gom-pa upon arriving at the monastery had to leave all his inner life behind, forgetting everything, even his name. To be anonymous was a requirement to do this training, and if the initiate was approved to do the training, he was taken to a cave of the monastery called Shamskang, where he had to do a meditation from 3 to 9 years, depending on the resistance of each one. During his confinement, the initiate was not allowed human contact. Food and water were passed to him through a 22 per 25 centimeters hole in the wall, as well as a rudimentary kitchen where buttered tea could be prepared. During this time of seclusion, the initiate spent his days meditating, reciting mantras, and breathing deeply. For physical exercise, he would walk on the cave where he was confined and practice the art of levitation, which consists of crossing his legs on a cushion, taking a long, slow breath, holding his breath, and jumping up and down with his legs crossed. Over the years, he can deeply synthesize his breathing and movement. After years of training in meditation, breathing, and levitation, the monks were released faster than a horse with their mission to serve as Mahetang. The maximum speed of a horse is 88 kilometers per hour. According to ancient Tibetan legends, these monks were sent to the farthest corners of Tibet to collect the spirits that were grieving on earth. Also, every November, a Mahetang was sent out to tour the central part of Tibet for 6 weeks to invite the demons to return with him to the monasteries, where these demons were subdued with a religious ritual. One of the most publicized cases of sightings of these runners is that of the traveler Alexandra David Neal, a presumed Freemason. Although she originally planned to stay less than 2 years in this territory, she decided to extend her stay for more than 14 years. In her book, Magic and Mystery in Tibet, she describes how she saw a lung-gom-pa runner in action. It should be emphasized that this is far from a common occurrence, and that Alexandra had the incredible fortune to come across one of them. After witnessing the sighting, he said that the monk seemed to levitate above the ground as he ran. His strides had a pendulum-like motion, making it appear as if the traveler was in some sort of spiritual trance. His tour guide explained that they are able to cross long distances that would normally take a month in just a couple of days. He also expressed that this gift is due to an intelligent control of inner air. Here we share part of Alexandra David Neal's account in her book Magic and Mystery in Tibet of meeting a lung-gom-pa. My first encounter with a lung-gom-pa took place in the grassland desert in northern Tibet. Towards the end of the afternoon, we were riding leisurely across a wide plain when I noticed far away, a little to our left, a tiny black spot, which, with help of my binoculars, I could see was a man. I was very surprised. Encounters are not frequent in that region, and we had not seen a human being for 10 days. Besides, people on foot and alone do not usually venture into these immense solitudes. Who could the traveler be? As I continued to observe him with my binoculars, I noticed that his pace was singular and that he advanced with extraordinary speed. Although with the naked eye my people could only see a black dot moving through the grasses, it was not long before they noticed the surprising speed he was moving. I passed them the binoculars, and one of them, after looking for a few minutes, exclaimed, "Lama lung-gom-pa chida." I would say it is a lung-gom-pa lama. The words lung-gom-pa immediately piqued my interest. I had yet to see a lung-gom-pa expert performing the prodigious feats that were so much talked about in Tibet. Was I going to miss the opportunity? The man continued to approach, and the speed at which he was moving became more and more evident. What was he to do if he was a true lung-gom-pa? I wanted to observe him closely, talk to him, ask him questions, and also photograph him. I wanted many things. When the lung-gom-pa approached them, Alexandra realized that the monk was in a trance. He showed no shortness of breath, seemed to be barely conscious, and was unable to speak. Her guide warned her not to stop or harass the monk, as it could cost him his life. But from the first words I uttered, the servant who had recognized the lung-gom-pa's pace exclaimed, "Reverend Madam, you are not going to stop the Lama. nor talk to him, are you? He would die for sure. These lamas, when they travel, should not interrupt their meditation. The god in them escapes, and if they stop repeating the magic formulas, and if he leaves them before the time, he gives them such a violent jolt that he kills them. He had arrived at a short distance from us. I could clearly distinguish his face impassive and his eyes wide open, which seemed to stare at a point somewhere up their empty space. He seemed to come off the ground with every step he took, and to bounce forward as if he had the elasticity of a ball. He wore the usual monastic habit and robe, both well worn. His left hand held a fold of the robe and remained hidden by the cloth. His right hand held a purba, which is a ritual dagger. As he walked, he moved his right arm slightly, in rhythm with his step, as if the parba, the tip of which was far from the ground, was actually in contact with him and served as a staff. According to the Tibetans, he who perseveres in this kind of exercise becomes able to sit on an ear of corn without bending the stalk, or to perch on top of a heap of wheat without moving a single grain. The walker does not have to talk or think about anything. His mind must be white as the mountain peaks, his eyes fixed on a single point far away, without ever allowing his attention to be distracted. A state of semi-consciousness, just so as not to stumble over a stone and arrive without bruises at the finish line. No medal awaits them. A short time later, he returned to meet another lung-gom-pa who was sitting on a rock, naked, and had chains wrapped around his waist. When he saw Alexandra, he took off running. It was impressive the speed he immediately developed. He only heard the whirring sound of his chains, which faded away as he disappeared into the thicket. Young then, his guide explained to him that these monks put on these chains to make themselves heavier, as their bodies are so light that they are in danger of floating in the air. The legend of these Tibetan monk runners remains a symbol of determination and spiritual devotion to this day. The locals say that every year one of these lama runners is chosen to go on the hunt for evil spirits. They live in November and take no more than 6 months to cover all the corners of the country, from Kunlun to the Himalayas and from Dakshueshuan to the Pamir. The god within them repeats magical formulas. No demon escapes them. Your mission is to convince them to take them with you to the monastery, where they will be dubbed through a ritual. In this way, they will not eat people, and with a diet based on offerings, the region will remain in peace. Although, judging by history, the lung-gom-pas don't seem to be too fit lately, perhaps because the 2 temples where they used to train were razed to the ground during Mao Zedong invasion. One of them was Samding. In 1985, it began to be rebuilt. It is occupied by about 30 monks governed by a woman, something that is very surprising given their culture and vision. Those who understand tantric hierarchies say that she is the most important reincarnation after the Dalai Lama and the Panchen Lama. However, the abbess lives and works for the government in Lhasa, 112 kilometers from her nunnery. Located at an altitude of 4,432 meters with spectacular views of Kula Kangri, which is 7,538 meters, and Gangar Poensum, 7,570 meters, it is a good place to set up base camp and hike in the surrounding area. Nothing is mentioned in the guidebook about lung-gom-pas. The other training center was the Nyang Tukipuk monastery, of which only the reference left by the Lama Anagarika Govinda in The Path of White Clouds, a book of his travels in Tibet, remains. The writer, who despite his name was German, but when he became a Buddhist he stopped calling himself Ernst Hoffmann, visited the lung-gom-pa in 1947, shortly before it was destroyed. The truth is that, during the communist regime of Mao Zedong, not only temples and monasteries disappeared. Thousands of Chinese troops were sent to Tibet, taking the city of Changde on October 19th in 1950, controlling all attempts of defense of the Tibetans, being this invasion given mainly by the interest of lithium, uranium, and other particularly important, water. This is because Tibet is also the highest and most extensive plateau in the world and the source of most of the main rivers in Asia, so it would be crucial for China in case of water shortage. During the invasion, they destroyed several Buddhist monasteries, including where the lung-gom-pa trained, and the Chinese were ordered to shoot any Tibetan monk they saw running, although it is said that this training of the lung-gom-pa is still carried out secretly in the high mountains of Tibet. It has been many years since anyone has seen them again in Tibet, but trustworthy testimonies claim that the lung-gom-pa monks covered enormous distances at an unusually fast speed. They trained in remote monasteries with breathing and meditation exercises, wrapped in a cloak of mysticism and isolated for years from the outside world.